Okay, Mayor, we're good.
Okay, at this time, I will call the special meeting of the City Transit Trust to order. Please call the roll.
Chapman. Gill. Hampton. Fortenbaugh. Johnson. Warren. Hankins. Harris.
Business item number 1, discuss and give input to staff on the transit center issue, including location, and give any direction deemed necessary. So I put this on the agenda because I felt like we'd had a number of places, 2 recently and 1 about 3 years ago, brought, and they've all seemed to kind of fall on light opposition. So I thought it might be best to just kind of refocus and ask the council, because I know that this item is second only to trash for the number of phone calls that I've received. So it's an item of passion for our citizens. And I thought it might be good to just listen to what the council thinks about it so the staff can go. And I know it's hard to get us together, and the Open Meetings Act says a meeting's the way to do it. So I'll start. And then if anyone else wants to weigh in, and I haven't even checked with anybody to see if they want to weigh in. I just presumed they might. I want to say that I appreciate the passion that I see from the staff for transit, and transit's very important in our community. There are people that depend on transit, and the bigger the city, the more they depend on transit. So this is a very important issue to our city. The truth is, most of us do not use transit. Now, what I want to see in a transit transfer station is a transit transfer station. I personally do not want the city in any more meeting space rental business. We have enough meeting space here, and we have meeting space with other entities in the city, such as the farmers market and such as private business like our convention centers, and potentially other places as well. So my personal opinion is to not get us in the rental business for meeting space, but also for retail space. Coming from the background I have in commercial real estate, I don't believe the kind of traffic that we're going to have at this transit station is going to be enough to support a retail business. And so I don't want to see us spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you can't hardly build anything for less than hundreds of thousands of dollars, that we wouldn't be able to rent. We've got to make sure the citizens are on board, and our process appears, there could have been something happen that I don't know, but our process appears to bring the citizens in last. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we can find to include citizens in the original design. I don't mean the design of the plan, design of the place. Now, the very first year I was on the council, 2019, this came up at the old, what we call the old police station. And it was voted down pretty soundly, as I recall. And we had a transit transfer ad hoc county council committee. None of those members are still on the council. I believe it was that council committee that said we need to do this downtown. I'm not sure the current council or the citizens still agree with that. My opinion is, first thing, get with the council committee. And there's an opening on that committee. If you'll get with me, probably communicate with me in case more than 3 through the city attorney, I'll appoint somebody to that committee to fill it up. But I'd say get with the ad hoc committee and discuss the ideas and maybe present to the citizens, just an idea. If they don't like it, if the council committee doesn't like it, that's fine too. Submit a number of ideas, 4 locations, 6 locations, whatever, and let the citizens do an online poll of where they would like to see it, and does it have to be downtown? Because it doesn't matter where the transfer station is, there are going to be buses running downtown. You will be able to get to downtown, and the expectation that you're going to be walking to everywhere downtown from the transit center is, my perception is that's not an accurate perception that the buses will be running at multiple stopping points downtown. Now, when it comes to the bus maintenance facility, I'm not sure I want it downtown, personal opinion. I kind of like where it is, and I kind of like the cost that we're paying. Let's talk about grants a minute, because I really appreciate all the grants we want to get. And I'm so proud of Ryan for his position as president of the Oklahoma Transit Association. Is that right? And I'm proud of you for being there, and I know that's going to open doors. The challenge for me is we have $2.5 million in the CIP for transit. We can't do anything with $2.5 million. It's not going to do much. And when we put that in there, I really thought it was going to be for buses. So I'm wondering how we're going to get buses. Well, we're going to get grants. Okay, how do we back out of this decision if grants don't come through and we're going to spend $5 million and the grants don't come through? How are we going to back out of this? How are we going to redo it? And how's that going to affect everything? So for me to support, and I only vote in case of a tie, and I've already made it clear I'm not going to vote for anything that splits the council, because this is too important for the community to be split on. It's clear it's too important by the amount of phone calls we've had. But for me to be supportive of it vocally, that we're going to have to be able to have an exit strategy if we don't get the grants that we expect to get going along. I'm very concerned about obligating and taking votes today for something that will happen 3, 4, 5 years in the future and be much more than the CIP has in it. And I'm not here to stand up and say, wait a minute. So that concerns me. Now, I've talked too long. Let's start down here with Mr. Warren.
Well, I would just echo part of what you've already said. My issue, if you want to call it an issue, it really isn't an issue, but my thinking is on this, and I'm going to call it the service center, where we store the buses, where we have fueling and all of those issues, and we do maintenance. I would have to agree with what the mayor said, simply because I think payout is a long time down the road to match the amount of money that we're paying for rent. I mean, we're going to be paying a lot of money up front to build a facility that we don't have to build. We could improve the one that we've got, and we could make some savings there, because I know when you put everything on balance, that when you start tying things together, which I think is where it got a little bit convoluted, when we started talking about, well, now it has to be on city property because we can save some money, and we have, matching funds and things of that. Then you start narrowing where you can put it, where I don't know that that's necessarily the most important thing. I think when you look at the overall situation, where we want to put it, like the mayor said, is where the citizens want it and where the citizens can get the most use out of it. I'm probably opposed on the other side of what the mayor said. The people that I've talked to like the idea of it being downtown because, and I'll just use one example, I had a lady call me, and she brings a basket, I don't know, of some kind, it's got wheels on it, and she goes and does all of her things. She goes to the little grocery store over here in the library, and she does all that thing, and she just unloads it and goes and does her stuff and then loads it up one time and goes back home. Whereas if she was riding to different stops, she'd have to get on and off 2 or 3 or 4 different times. But anyway, so I think it's important that we hear from the citizens. Like you said, the vast majority of the citizens in Lawton don't use the transit system. So I think it's important that we talk to and listen to the people that are actually riding it on a daily basis, because the whole idea was to provide them with adequate and accessible transportation. And if we're just doing it to make transportation that's not necessarily convenient for the people that are using it, I think we've failed. So I think that needs to be the focus. We need to find out where they want it. And if we can save money at the service center area. even if we used some funds to improve that area, I think we'd be better off that. And I like the idea of an online poll. I don't know that that's going to get a hold of everybody that rides. Maybe we can put maps with, and we've used this before, but I think on the lakes deal, maybe on each bus we can have a map that says, where would you like the terminal facility to be located, and you'd have your 10 options or whatever, and you got your little green dots, and let them put the little green dots where they want to put them, and then we pick those up every couple hours or whatever. I don't know what the mechanics of that would be, but at least you would be able to get an idea of what the people that use the system want. It's very difficult for me to put myself, I've only ridden about 3 times, but it's difficult for me to put myself in that state of mind on what I would need and what I wouldn't need if I was riding it on a daily basis. So that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Warren. Mr. Fortenbaugh.
I've received a lot of calls about the Gore Boulevard proposed location, all of them negative. Primarily, they're concerned about traffic and creating an accident risk. I think we need to consider that. I don't remember why we voted down the old police station. I think it had to do with bus fumes and the farmer's market being right now, but we're going to get electric buses, and of all the sites we've looked at, I like that one the best if I had to pick one. What I'd really like to see is us get a few recommendations of different sites along with pros and cons and cost, and so that we can make a selection without trying to get pigeoned into one thing. Okay. And I'll say on the record too, Charlotte, you're doing an amazing job up there.
Thank you.
When I've had to ask you for information, you just respond immediately, and so I don't know how you do that. And you also know what's going on in your department.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. It is no doubt that well, before I say that, Ryan, you and your team are amazing and very patient. This has been a very, very difficult, and I think it's all about location. It seems like this far, and also I think you're also doing a fantastic job. I do think that there's a couple of things, and I just want to talk about having options. Anytime I deal with anything, I choose 4 or 5 different options, and with those options, I'm able to compare and contrast and list the things that are better in this option, better in the second option, better in the third option, and then I kind of list them in a priority. And I think that it's already been said a couple of times that maybe choosing 4 or 5 different locations, I mean even locations that you think wouldn't even make the list, just to have information out there. And one of the criteria that we've been doing is we've been trying to save money, and thus we've been picking locations that may cost the city money to have to purchase the lot. I sometimes when I drive down Gore, down there by Cracker Barrel, Splash Pools, there's a big old lot out there with that has concrete and stuff. And I'm sure the city doesn't own that, but it's just this big empty lot. I think, I wonder if a transfer station or something could go in this area right here. So I think that there needs to be a list. I would like to see maybe list some, like I said, locations that we would think that no one would even like. But those locations would still give us information as we're looking at them. And in that, I mean, you're wanting aesthetics, you're wanting a location, you're wanting a number of different things that different people are thinking differently. And one of the reasons I think it's important, and that's been said too, is because it's going to give the citizens an opportunity to get a whole picture of where this is going to be. This is not, this is the importance of this. This is going to be here probably way past any of us. I was the youngest person in here, I'm trying to look, but way past us being here. And so we're not just the ones that are going to be living with this, but into the future, we're going to be living with this. So let me see if that covered probably. Yeah, that covers pretty much most of my opinion on the situation. Thank you, Mayor.
And Mr. Gill.
One would think I've been on the council for the last 4 or 5 months with as many calls as I have had over the transfer station. I'd like to say a couple of things. I've had most of the people that have called are handicapped individuals, and we need to remember our handicapped people. They all use this transit system. It's very important to their lifestyle that we have something that accommodates them. Many complaints have been about how hard it's going to be to get from point A to point B on the railroad site. And the Gore side, I've had just continuous negative discussions on that. I've found no one so far that's in favor of that at all. And I think anyone that drives up and down Gore any time of day, especially during the business hours, can see why. I think the mayor was absolutely right about one thing. These buses go everywhere downtown. So wherever we have this transfer station, our people are still going to ride on them to the downtown areas or wherever they need to go. But I certainly like the idea, number one, of having the maintenance section separate from the center itself. And for a lot of reasons, most of them are self-evident from the fact that I don't care what kind of a business you have, if you have maintenance involved, it's not a real clean business. And you can strive and do all the things you want to keep it that way, but it never turns out that way. In fact, we had a question about that 3 or 4 meetings ago about, are we going to be able to keep this facility? I believe Mrs. Hankins or Linda asked that. Are we going to be able to, in 4 or 5 years, is this facility going to look nice? Is it going to be clean? And we were assured that it would be, but we all know better than that. It's hard to keep a maintenance and also a center in the shape and condition that it should be. So I think that some of the other council people are absolutely right. I think our maintenance and for what we're paying should probably stay where it's at. So that means we need to have a new center. Definitely we need to have one. There's a lot of ideas where it needs to go. And I have some ideas where it needs to go from just people that have called. And I'll be happy to get with staff and go over some of these. But I'd like to look for a new location, somewhere where it would be good for all the people and everybody be happy. I realize you're not going to make everyone happy, but the best we can. And my time is up.
You actually have 30 more seconds.
Oh, I have 30 more seconds. Can I put those on for later on another time?
No, there's no banking, Ms. Chapman.
Nice try, George.
Well, so many things that have already been said that I agree with. The one thing that I don't have any information, I don't know how to get the information, but in really knowing what the specifications and needs of the mobility of these buses moving in and out of this transfer station, as far as talking about options, how much space do we need for all of that? Those kinds of little detailed things I don't know about. I'm going to have to rely on staff or someone to help us with that decision when we're looking at multiple options. I like that idea. I think that the people who ride the bus need to have input. I don't have all the answers, but I would like to have some recommendations for a variety of places. And I know this has been a huge headache for Ryan and Charlotte, and I do appreciate your efforts in doing this. So.
Very good. Mr. Harris?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with a lot of what was said, Mr. Mayor, that, we need to make sure before we go build something giant that we have the funds to do that. I think that's a great idea. Sean said we need choices, and I think that's important. We keep hearing about this side and that side, and we need to be able to compare apples to apples. And so what I would like to see, Charlotte, is a spreadsheet of some sort, or just a note that says, all right, how many square feet, like Linda said, how many actual square feet do we need? What's the power supply needs? How many parking spaces do we need? Is there going to be electric charging available? Of course, the budget is going to be huge, and so, you know, I know we have high confidence that the feds will pay for part of this, but are we assured of that, as the mayor said? I think that's really incredible. I know that a lot of people haven't really done any research on it, but, you know, switching to electric buses, what will that do for us, and what will that mean as far as the needs that we have for this, and how does that improve our maintenance or make our maintenance center different? City property, I'd like to see it on city property, but the more we look at it, you know, the sites that we have are kind of limited, and so we may have to look at that as part of the overall picture. I do believe it is important to keep in mind that while we can put it anywhere, the majority of the riders of LATS are students, are our kids and our grandkids. And so wherever we put this location, it needs to be a place where we feel like they're safe and they'll be comfortable and they won't have to worry about the neighborhood. I think that's really critical. I agree with Randy that I think the riders should have the most important input here because they're the ones that actually have to do it. And, you know, we've had letters from people in Elgin saying, well, I'm against this. Well, one, they're not in town, and two, they're not riding the bus. And I think the people that are actually riding the bus, the people I met while I was actually riding the bus that day, their input should be critical in this. And so I hope that we can narrow it down. I mean, we should make a list of every site that we've considered just so people know, oh yeah, we've looked at them all, we've looked at this, we've looked at that, we've done this. And then here's the most important, you know, if we have a list of what we want to start with, what we absolutely have to need, then we can weed out and make, as a council, I can make my choice based on what is the best fit and not necessarily what is the most popular, which I think is the critical thing going down the road. And I'll concede my 15 seconds back to the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I'll use those wisely.
Somebody setting my timer because I'm
Ms.
not,
Hankins, yes.
but I'm not worried about it either. I want to assure the citizens that we do care about their input because there have been so many times that we've tried to include citizens and there hasn't been much participation from the citizens. So I think that's a critical factor. We really do care what you think and what you want done. The service center, maybe service centers are cleaner now because maybe all of us old folks up here don't really know what a service center looks like in today's world. I remember the greasy garages and the filling stations and stuff, so I really don't know about that. But if it's okay where it is, then as far as money, I'd be fine with that. The citizens have not been in much of an agreement either on the location of the transfer center. I get different ideas from the citizens, but I do think that we could do a survey somehow and get the riders. I like Randy's idea of getting the riders. You know, it's really expensive to own a car. I doubt if many of us realize that, but when I worked with people who had to consider that, the insurance and all that, it's a good idea to ride the bus if you don't have the money to support a car. So they're expensive. But we do need to have a nice transfer center that has nice restrooms and has nice facilities. I think the citizens deserve that and the riders of the bus definitely deserve that, but I was pretty much in agreement with the mayor about do we need that to be much more than just a really nice transfer center. So I probably have more than a few minutes, but I'm going to...
You got a minute and 10 seconds left.
Okay, well, I'm going to concede. Charlotte knows I really like her work, so...
Mr. Harris, you've got your light on. Did you want to continue or? Okay.
Linda says no. I mean, Marion said.
So it looks like that's about it. So that was good input. I do want to say this. I really like those iconic arches, but that doesn't have to be associated with a transfer center. Right. If the community wants to do iconic arches, it can find a way to do that in some form or fashion and in some location. To me, that's a separate deal, but I really liked it. Thank you guys for taking the time to listen to us today. I hope it's been helpful, and I hope your next step, and I think you've already got it planned, is to meet with the council ad hoc committee. Yes. And I'll get busy and get that empty space that filled for you, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Do I have a motion for adjournment? Have a motion and a second? Please call the roll.
Gill. Yes. Hampton. Fortenbaugh. Warren. Hankins. Harris. Chapman.
And we'll have a little technology delay before starting.